Before we continue, if you like this content, please give us a like, comment, and or subscribe. You can even help us out further by subscribing to our Patreon. It helps keep the light on and the content coming. Thanks. Starting the year off with a great main event, Max Holloway will attempt to restart his career after his losses to Alexander Volkanovski with the main event matchup against Calvin Kattar. This is an interesting fight for both fighters because both play well into the other's weaknesses, and I think will likely be a close fight. Kattar loves to box at range, and Holloway wants to melt his opponents under his endless volume. Let's start with Kattar. I think that a lot of people think that Kattar might be a rebound win for Holloway, but I don't really think it's that easy. What Kattar does well is straight hitting, more specifically with his lightning quick 1-2. Kattar will often disguise the right straight by doubling up on his jab, and against Shane Burgos, Kattar jabbed his face off in the opening minutes of the fight. This kept Burgos at range and focused on slipping the jab, which gave Kattar a lot more time to find his right straight, albeit after a dozen or so jabs. Against the swarming Burgos, this gave Kattar a space-making tool that he would feint to keep Burgos guessing. But against Ricardo Lamas, Kattar used his jab and kicks to help establish distance. After that, Kattar started working the high-low combination, a classic, in which he threw several right hands to the body after his jab. Kattar even directed the right hand downwards rather than changing levels in order to make it look like a right hand to the head. After marching Lamas to the fence, Kattar would lance Lamas with the right straight after Lamas misread the combination. When Kattar has his opponents biting on his feints, he'll go for uppercuts and hooks to the body, especially when they're trying to avoid the right cross. However, Kattar can often smother his own work when he gets too excited, and he'll often forget to throw kicks after he's landed successful punches. What both fights showed was that Kattar fights incredibly well on a straight line, whether that would be moving backwards or moving forwards. As long as Kattar can work his jab and create space for himself, he'll slowly find his boxing combinations. But that's exactly the problem with Kattar. In his fight against Zabit Magomedsharipov, Kattar would constantly back up when Zabit came forward to give himself space. But since he fights on a straight line, his movement was predictable. Kattar's defense also let him down because he likes to wait for his turn. This meant that when Zabit threw in combination, Kattar would cover up or move straight back, while Kattar would try to catch punches and throw back. Because he was so out of his comfort zone, he couldn't really land with regularity. Kattar had this exact same issue with Burgos, especially when Burgos came forward with body shots. However, Burgos gave Kattar too much space to jab, which ultimately allowed Kattar to find his right hand. However, the largest issue with Kattar is his inability to check low kicks. Against Renato Moicano, Kattar had his lead leg kicked out from under him whenever he wanted to jab. This is mostly because in order to jab, you have to put your weight on your lead leg and to turn your leg inwards. Kattar has a beautiful jab, but as a result, he's very susceptible to low kicks. But in his fight with Dan Ige, Kattar has clearly made an effort to throw in combination early, but that's still a little few and far between. While it wasn't a new technique or something flashy, Kattar has clearly made a shift in order to try to punish his opponents early and create more advantages. Kattar still struggles to keep his opponents on the end of his reach, and a lot of times he was just following Ige around the cage, attempting to piece him up. But Kattar's next opponent is his biggest and most difficult task yet. Max Holloway has been a UFC featherweight staple for almost a decade. For the first time in his career, Holloway is facing a two-fight skid, albeit his most recent loss came at a razor-close decision. What makes Holloway so good is his ability to steal turns and keep the fight in his tempo. A lot of Holloway's boxing arsenal is similar to Kattar, but Holloway's preferred distance and tempo makes them very different. But much like Kattar, Holloway likes to find a distance with his jab, either to the body or to the head. With this, Holloway can keep his opponent thinking, while he circles them looking for an opening to flurry in. This is the largest difference between Kattar and Holloway. Kattar is much more of a sharpshooter. He's more than happy to jab a dozen times in order to land one right hand, whereas Holloway needs to consistently touch his opponent in order to feel like he's finding success. In his fight against Jose Aldo, Holloway's resilience and consistency in his in-and-out strategy was able to confuse and annoy the counter-striker. By constantly making Aldo bite on his feints, he was able to lull Aldo into a sense of safety, only to lance him with a combination. There's a certain craft to Holloway's pressure. He likes to keep his opponents against the fence, but if they use more energy to get off the fence, he's perfectly fine with letting them waste it. And I think Holloway's approach to this fight will likely determine the outcome. This is because in Holloway's wins, it has come down to whether Holloway can control his opponent's output or not. Against Dustin Poirier, Holloway struggled immensely with the distance and power of Poirier. It's not like Holloway hasn't dealt with power, but it was Poirier's ability to land at what Holloway thought was a safe distance. Holloway would often try to build up combinations with Poirier, going head body head and even backing him up, but Poirier would routinely block the path of Holloway's jab and circle out whenever Holloway would dart towards him. Whenever Poirier would come forward and shift his stance, he was sure that Holloway wouldn't immediately pivot out, because Holloway always wants to be in range to touch his opponent. Therefore, Poirier can throw without fear and cover up and return whenever Holloway opened up. And that's where I think Kattar has a chance. Holloway will often forget defense in order to stay in the pocket and land in volume. Against Poirier, he was punished heavily for it. And even against Brian Ortega, Holloway would take right hands or left hooks while he had his feet squared. So for Holloway, he needs to thread the needle in terms of pressure and volume. He's shown beautiful body work, especially when darting in and out against Poirier. Kattar is likely to give Holloway more opportunities than Poirier to hit the body, since he prefers the basic double forearm guard, and since Holloway is more likely to be the kicker of the two, it wouldn't be too difficult for Holloway to feint a kick and run a combination to the body. For Kattar, I think Kattar needs to show a bit more of a consistent pressure game. Against Ige, Kattar was comfortable letting Ige walk away from him, and since Kattar doesn't really throw raw kicks, he was stuck following him. If Holloway wants to flurry in combination, then Kattar seems primed to punish him with uppercuts and hooks. Holloway has all the tools to wreak havoc on Kattar's jab, and he even has more options on where the fight takes place. Kattar, for his part, is stuck on a line and hasn't proven much of a defensive savant. He's too willing to give his opponent space to fight back, even if it means he can hit them back. And Holloway isn't the kind of fighter you want to give time to. It's very likely that Holloway employs his strategy with Cub Swanson, where he hangs out at kicking range, body kicking his opponent, and later ducking into the pocket for a series of punches. So for me, I would say that Holloway is the likely winner, but I'm still very hopeful that Kattar finds a way to change my mind. So until then, welcome to the new year, let's enjoy some violence. My name is Julian Lung, and this is a fight site breakdown of Max Holloway and Calvin Kattar.
Right now. And Holloway's landed nearly 252% clip. Ortega retreats.